to my series, Women in the Bible and the Fragrances That I Think They Will Wear. Imagine a woman that had such an awful reputation and mission that we are still talking about her today. Enter the chat, old Jezebel. Now, Jezebel was married to an evil king named Ahab. He ruled about 22 years. He was a king of Israel, and he ruled from Samaria. Now, their whole thing was idol worship, idolatry. They worshiped the god of Baal. They built a shrine and an altar, and they also built a shrine to a god named Asherah, who was known as a sacred garden tomb, I'll say. All of this idol worship infuriated God, so he sent Elijah, a prophet, to prophesy to him. He was like, y'all are out here wilding out, so from now on, you ain't gonna have no water. There's going to be a drought. There'll be no Poland Springs. There'll be no Dasani. There'll be no Great Value water. Nothing, not a zilch. Y'all going to be dry and thirsty. So after Elijah gave this word, he went and fled. He was just in the wilderness, kind of like regretting the fact that he was a prophet. He was like, why I got to do this all the time? Like, why I got to tell these people that? So he fled. So as time went on, the king Ahab sent to his partner Obadiah. Obadiah was faithful to God. While they were killing all the prophets, while Jezebel and Ahab were killing all the prophets, Obadiah hid 100 prophets in two caves, like 50 in each cave. So Elijah and King Ahab end up coming face to face. And Elijah was like, I'm tired of y'all. Y'all gonna pick a side. If their God is God, then pick a side and serve him. But if God be God, if Yahweh be God, y'all gonna have to get off the fence and make up your mind of who you're going to serve. So Elijah came up with this plan. He was like, okay, get some animals, get some oxen, and what we're gonna do, we're gonna build an altar. We're gonna sacrifice an animal, cut it up, put it on the altar, and whoever's God is God, they will send fire and consume the sacrifice. So first, the prophets of Baal went. They were just calling out to their God, telling them to come and consume the sacrifice, but nothing happened. I mean, they were just acting crazy. They were just getting up on top of the altar, jumping up and down. They started cutting themselves. They were bleeding all over. Nothing would happen. So Elijah had started teasing them. He was like, yo, man, what's up with your God? Does he sleep? Do you think he's on vacation? Like he's not answering you. Maybe you need to call him a little louder. He can't hear you. So this foolishness went on well past noon. So Elijah got tired of it. He was like, enough of that. I'm tired of y'all. Let me show you what time it really is. So he was like, okay, I'm going to tell y'all what. They got the ox. They cut it up, set up the altar again because, you know, they had been jumping up and down on it, had tore it up. So they constructed the altar again. And Elijah was like, just to prove to you who God really is, I'm going to tell you what to do. Get some buckets of water. Pour it on the sacrifice, pour it on the altar, and pour it around like he had some trenches around that. And he said, the God that I serve is going to answer by fire. And guess what, y'all? He did. God answered by fire. The altar was consumed, the sacrifice was consumed, and even the water was dried up. So right after that display of God's power, the prophets of Baal were unalived by Elijah. So after that display of God's power, Ahab got up and went back and told his wife Jezebel. She was furious. So she ended up threatening Elijah. She was like, okay, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. So what did Elijah do? He went and hid in the wilderness again. And so God came and found him. He was like, what are you doing here, boy? Get up. And he was like, aren't you a prophet of God? And so an earthquake came, a whirlwind came, and Elijah was looking for God in that. But God spoke to him in a still small voice. That still small voice that God spoke to Elijah and gave him instructions on what to do. So fast forward, there was a man named Naboth who had a vineyard. Ahab was so greedy, he wanted the vineyard. He went to him and he was like, hey, can I buy it from you? He was like, no, I'm not going to give away the family business to you. No, I'm not going to do it. So Ahab goes home crying to his wife. And he's sitting down, moping, won't eat. She was like, dude, what is wrong with you? Why are you sitting up crying? He was like, well, I wanted a vineyard, but the dude wouldn't give it to me. So Jezebel, with her evil self, ended up getting her husband stationary. She forged a letter saying that Naboth had blasphemed God and also the king. So she had this deceptive plan. They ended up taking Naboth out and unaliving him. They stoned him, and they ended up taking his vineyard. So some more time had gone by, and Elijah had to confront Ahab again. They get to the place where him and Jezebel are, and there were still some faithful people in the city that still served Yahweh and that didn't serve the God of Baal. So when Elijah got there, he was like, hey, who's with me? And the faithful servants to God that were also servants of the king and Jezebel ended up pushing her out the window. She fell to her unaliving, and as Elijah had prophesied before, her bones were actually consumed by dogs. There's also mention of her in Revelation, where God has written to the church in Thyatira. I think that's how you say it, y'all. I don't know. He was like, I see everything y'all are doing. I see all your good works, but I have one problem. You have tolerated Jezebel and idol worship. Y'all, that's a word for today. I don't want to tussle, but that's a word for today. So the perfume that I have chosen for Jezebel to wear, and y'all, speaking of tussling, don't tussle with me in these comments, but it's Teriyaki Intense. The notes are saffron, bergamot, plum liqueur, cinnamon, amber, tonka bean, and benzoin. The reason I chose that, I said this in another video, perfume is subjective, bottles and all that stuff. But that serpent on the top, I don't do serpents, and that reminded me of Jezebel's behavior, acting just like an old serpent. So the story of Jezebel can be found in several places. In the Old Testament, it's in 1 Kings chapter 16, 18, 19, and 21, 2 Kings chapter 9, and Revelation chapter 2, verses 20 through 23. Hey, y'all, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And by God's grace, I will see you all next Sunday.